The Liberal Party of Canada is being decimated in polls, so of course, a Liberal-tied, biased pollster must swoop in to sway the day and label everyone who supports the Conservative Party as mis- and disinformation believers. So let's examine what this actually means. Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News to bring you the recent results of a poll conducted by EKOS Politics on Polarized Gridlock, wherein it's alleged that the Canadian electorate is gridlocked without a clear path to a majority government for any of the main political parties. It attempts to paint supporters of the Conservative Party of Canada as believers of disinformation. Have a look at these results. Vote intention by disinformation. According to this poll, there is a dramatic correlation between Conservative support and disinformation, a link that is even stronger among People's Party supporters. Naturally, the Liberal and NDP supporters believe in all of the right thoughts and are supporters of the holy grail of truth and information, probably like what they receive from the Canadian state broadcaster, otherwise known as the CBC. But what were these questions based on? The 4 pieces of disinformation were posed as follows. Vaccine-related deaths are being concealed from the public. COVID-19 vaccines can cause infertility. COVID-19 vaccines can alter a patient's DNA. Inflation is much higher in Canada than in the United States, and climate change is caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Some of these questions are objectively correct and, or at the very least, disputed by experts and some government officials. Take, for instance, the first one. Vaccine-related deaths are being concealed from the public. Frank Graves, founder and CEO of EKOS, a longtime Liberal donor and supporter, took to Twitter to reiterate this question here. Do you think governments are intentionally concealing the true numbers of deaths from the vaccines? The correct answer is no. Well, that's not entirely true, and we will get to why in just a minute. But see, first, I responded to Graves on X, formerly known as Twitter, with the following response, questioning his assertion that the correct answer is in fact no. Even when Health Canada officials testify under oath to the exact opposite, I asked and posted a link to a previous Rebel report where then acting Associate Deputy Minister of Health Canada, that's Celia Lourenco, acknowledged that underreporting of vaccine adverse events is a, quote, well-known fact. She testified to this during cross-examination at a federal public sector labor relations and employment board tribunal hearing in July earlier this year.
With the majority of the adverse effects that I'm submitting being rejected, I worry what the overall data in the Canadian system, whether or not it's actually reliable.
Graves immediately turned off commenting on his post after my comment, because I guess you can only quell dissent by silencing and censoring it. Nothing quite tells the truth like having to control who is allowed to question and comment on your narrative. Worth further noting here is that Lourenco is also named in a $10.5 million lawsuit launched on behalf of a COVID-19 vaccine-injured Albertan that cites the Canadian state broadcaster and various public servants for negligence and COVID-19 vaccine misinformation for simply regurgitating that safe and effective pharma marketing slogan again, and again.
Trudeau said in a speech that nobody's going to be left behind. Nobody in Canada would be left behind. They were going to give CERB. They were going to help everybody. That's not what they've done with the vaccine-injured people like me. We've been told to be quiet. Doctors have been told they will lose their license if they help. The media will not cover it.
It was found in a report from 2011 by the United States Department of Health and Human Services Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality that fewer than 1% of vaccine adverse events are reported to the Food and Drug Administration. Here in Canada, the health agency responsible for managing adverse events reports stonewalled streamlining its vaccine adverse events reporting system for 2 years after stakeholders reported confusion.
The admitting doctor there, I said to her, I believe I have a vaccine injury. And she said, well, you probably do, but there's nothing we can do about it.
In an order paper response from Health Canada, MP Colin Carey had asked the agency why they removed a direct adverse events reporting link from their online reporting form at the same time that the novel injections were being urgently administered to Canadians under an interim order in December of 2020. Health Canada said that the removal was supposed to streamline adverse events reporting, but when it did not, and instead caused a bunch of confusion likely to have further exacerbated adverse events underreporting, they reinstated the link in February earlier this year in 2023, over 2 years later.
Like, this has something to do with the vaccine. All of a sudden I got all these blood clots. So I asked the doctor that told me to go for the x-rays and the CT scan. I'm like, are you going to fill out the adverse reaction, that I had a reaction to the vaccine? And his words to me was like, it takes too long. We're not going to do that here.
So the question about disinformation is in essence misinformation itself, and what's happening here is not a genuine poll, but rather a form of propaganda. This is unsurprising given that Frank Graves tweeted this in March of last year. Quote, Pierre Poilievre is an acolyte of authoritarian populism. This is never healthy. You are on notice, going to make sure you are never going to lead my country. I don't make idle threats, end quote. And threatening it is, given this recent characterization of conservatives as disinformation believers seems to be more of a vendetta by Graves than impartial polling. And how convenient that it comes out just days after the Liberal-held Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office, and the Speaker of the House of Commons gave a hero's welcome to a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
The fact is that things like vaccine adverse events are severely underreported, and Health Canada's slow response to improving its own reporting system shows that this pollster is more interested in inflammatory propaganda than objectivity. Overly simplistic labels like dis and misinformation believers fails to capture the nuanced socio-political landscape in Canada, which is why the importance of critical evaluation when interpreting such absurd results really needs to be emphasized. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. The honoring of a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament cannot be swept under the rug like every other scandal under the regime of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's why we're calling on Trudeau to finally resign at trudeauMustResign.com. Sign our petition and demand that Trudeau take full personal accountability and responsibility for his continued international stage embarrassments at trudeauMustResign.com.